So I would try to run early in the morning and late in the evening, and lunchtimes we would just try and find a tree like this to shade underneath. Like I said, there was no luxuries. There wasn't chairs and tables. We just sat in the dirt, cooked our rice, and tried to relax a little bit for 57 days. Other dangers were these things. So this trail that I was going across, I assumed that when it is actually a mountain bike race, they probably have marshals or something in the areas where there's lions and rhinos and buffaloes and whatever. They don't, they just go for it. So, yeah, all of these areas, everything had to go over these gates as well. You can imagine being my brother, he was pretty pissed off with me. So I would climb to the top of...
You had to lift the 60 kilo bike over.
I would climb to the top of the gate, he'd take off a pannier at a time, pass them up, and he'd climb over and catch them on the other side, same with the bike, everything. Sometimes there was like 10 in a day. So, yeah. But yeah, I ran through the areas where there was lions and everything, and came into some problems with people that wanted to stop us doing it, but didn't actually see any animals anyway. So it wasn't a problem. This is the highest pass in South Africa. The run that I went on goes over this pass. When you're at the bottom of it and you can see the top, it's obviously, it feels like it's impossible to get up there, it's so high. But people often ask me about mind games that I play to get over it. So there's a couple that I was going to tell you about. One of them, what I've called the Jill Watson technique, because someone called Jill Watson, she taught me how to do it basically. So have a look around you, wherever you are. This might be for covering a distance or covering a height, whatever your challenge is. Have a look around you, take in the environment, and then look at the ground, and you do not take your eyes off the ground. Keep going, count as slowly as you can to 100, and then once you've got to 100, have a look around, and chances are you're going to have moved. So then you're going to feel like, wow, okay, I've accomplished something, do it again. And that really works for me. Another little mind game that I play is a little bit more bonkers. Has anyone seen Finding Nemo? Mm-hmm. Yeah? You know Dory, the blue fish? Can't remember anything, that's very much like me as well. She goes around, just keep swimming. So I just had this chanting in my head. I had it pretty much the whole way up this hill, just keep swimming, and then counting to 100. Just keep swimming, probably insane, but yeah. They're two little mind games that I play that get me through these things. But the things that I love most about the adventures that I've done are not so much the running or the cycling or any of these things, it's actually the random moments that occur in these events that I really love. So when I got to the top of that big pass that was on the last picture, we hadn't really seen anyone. The whole time we were doing this run across South Africa, I didn't really see any people. A guy came up to us at the top in his four-wheel drive, and he was like, oh, I saw you at the bottom running up. Like, that's pretty bonkers, but amazing. Wow, well done. He was like, I bet you're really thirsty. And I was like, yeah, really, really thirsty. We'd actually run out of water. There was no water sources, and we didn't have any water to cook any food. He's like, oh, I bet you're really thirsty. I was like, yeah, I'm dying. And he's like, don't worry, I'll get you something from the back of my van. And he came up and he gave us 2 Bacardi breezes. When you're dehydrated, that is not really what you want. So, me and my brother set up the tent and we just got absolutely wasted on 1 Bacardi breeze. But we couldn't cook our dinner, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. Another random event. Hey?
Did you cook the rice in it?
I just drank it and then went to sleep. Forgot that I was hungry, it was okay. Another random event was this dog. A huge dog, just appeared one day out of nowhere. There was nothing around, just like little shacks like this. And he just ran with us for 19 kilometres and then stopped. It was so weird. And we went through loads of those fences that I showed you earlier. And we would climb over the fence and be like, well, the dog's definitely not going to get over. Bye, dog. And then he'd just appear again. You're like, where did you come from? So yeah, that was just random events. So, after 57 days, I'd taken 11 days off of running, so I actually ran for 46 days. I'd completed a run that was my project from Durban to Cape Town across South Africa. This was in 2011. And I managed to raise £11,000 for the wildlife centre that was close to me, so I was pretty chuffed with myself, and that was that. I had no intention of doing anything ever again. I was just going to go back, have my normal life, settle down, and that was it. Didn't want to do any kind of running again. And then I went to the Banff Mountain Film Festival with a group of friends and drank a lot of tequila. As most good stories start with good. So we watched all these films and they were amazing, about people doing all different kinds of adventures, walking, mountaineering, running, cycling, whatever, all these adventures, they were great. But the one thing that we noticed, and we talked about this with my group of friends afterwards, that they were all men. And one of my friends said to me, I can't believe like all these men have done these adventures, where are the women doing them? I was like, women are doing them, you know? They're just not necessarily being filmed and they're not being promoted. In fact, there was one film about a dog. All these films about men and one film about a dog, but there's no films about women. So I explained to my friend about my South Africa trip, and she said, would you be interested in doing something bigger and similar? She's involved with a charity called the Seed Project, which is in Zimbabwe. Would you want to do something that's bigger, going through Zimbabwe, coast to coast across Africa? Obviously the tequila would have a bit of an effect, and I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. But the deal was that she did the organising and I would do the running. Because trying to do it all and have a full-time job, it's too hard. And I'd done it already before for my little thing that I was passionate about. So she said, great, she didn't work full-time, so she did the organising and I did the running all the way across Africa. I thought she was going to back out. I thought it was one of those things like you say and it doesn't happen. She thought I was going to back out. Eventually it did happen. So this is the tracker that was on me. So this is the actual route that I took from Henties Bay in Namibia, diagonally up through the desert to the Caprivi Strip. This is a part that I'll mention later about lions. Into Zambia for a few days, across Zimbabwe, into Mozambique and Malawi, and then this is getting into the jungle, across Mozambique again to Pembo. So I'd learned from my last trip, I felt so guilty about my poor brother with all this weight on his bike and everything. I felt terrible about it, so I was like, if I'm going to do this, it has to be different. It has to be more organised, has to have a lot more equipment and a lot more funding. So this is Aisha, the woman that I had this original conversation with the tequila. She said that she could get together a vehicle and a support team and blah, 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 blah. And I kind of left that all to her. So that's me, all excited. This is day one. This is Robert. He works for the charity in Zimbabwe. It's actually, there's only 2 people that work for the charity in Zimbabwe, and he is the main one. The other person works in the office. So I was very fortunate to have him with me pretty much the whole way. They gave up like having him working to help support me. This is Wukash, who is a mechanic, and then Mike, who is Mike on the bike. Most of the team stayed in the vehicle, and the vehicle would go ahead, but Mike would stay with me, literally right next to me as kind of like one-on-one support the whole time. He was absolutely vital. He basically did the job that my brother did in the last trip, but I didn't want him to have weight on the bike like my brother did, because my brother was so exhausted. He was working as hard as I was, and the whole point of him being there was to help me. But actually he ended up getting ill, so you know, I wanted him to have a light bike and be able to be there for me. That was the whole point of that. So this was also the first time we'd been together as a team. Which, my advice to you, if you're going to do some kind of ultra thing and have a team, is definitely be together as a team to start with. Like, do some training as a team. So with my South Africa run, I didn't start in the ocean. And even though the run went across South Africa, I never felt like I could say I actually ran across South Africa because I didn't start in the ocean. So this is the one thing I really wanted to do, starting in the Atlantic Ocean, running all the way into the Indian Ocean to the other side. This is day one, literally running out of the ocean. So then this is the desert. It started in the desert. I'm guessing quite a few of you here have actually run in the desert. Have you? Yeah? Yeah?
Was it the Kalahari, is it?
No. I don't know what the name of this is. It's just desert. Namibian desert. My geography is really good. Emma's desert. Yeah.
But it looks horrendous.
Yeah, so it's sandy.
It's the Namib,
The Namib. Yes, I think there was even a sign that said that. I should have put a sign picture on. Sure. So I spent about 3 weeks running through this, which is pretty hard at the best of times, and the guys of you that are here that have run through the desert, you know, or even just running on a beach.
Was it all straight as well?
Pretty much. It was boring as hell. Like, really had to use your brain and like play mind games for this. Something else that I messed up, like this, if this is a lesson to you, it's that anyone can do these things, because I messed up on so many things. I had no experience and I just wung it every time. So when I did my South Africa run, I went east to west, and I had the wind against me the whole time. So I was like, right, when I do the next one, I'll do it the other way. Surely, yeah, that's going to work. Apparently not. Apparently the wind changes. In this part of the world, there's a bit of a cycle, and I got it wrong. So not only was I running through sand all the time, but I was also running into a headwind, and it was literally like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So, other Other problems at running in Africa, again, like I said before, the heat. So it was boiling hot in the desert and then freezing cold at night. And within the first few days, I had a quick lesson about this as I got heat exhaustion. But this is the other lesson, is that you really need to have the best support team. This tree was not really going to give me any shade whatsoever, but Mike is so good. He's quite heavily involved with the scouts, so he's got all those like scouting skills. And with a piece of rope and a bike and a rock and my sarong, he managed to make some creative shelter, which was brilliant. So I lay down for a bit, had some fluids, had some food, had a little bit of a rest, and within about 15-20 minutes I was up and running again. So having like the best support team that can recognise when you're suffering and sort it out straight away is just, it's invaluable, you know. He was brilliant. People often ask me what helped me to get all the way across without having any major injuries. The thing that I really believe helped me with that was every 10k I would stop and stretch, just in the middle of the road. It was the only option really. And every 20k I would use a foam roller. And I think these two things are what saved me from having any major injuries. I had little injuries, but nothing that actually stopped me from running. And also, at least once a day, Mike had been trained by my physio to massage my legs, and that was a major help. But obviously in Africa you can't buy massage oil, so we used the next best thing, which was cooking oil. And my legs literally like cooked in the heat, which I'll come on to later, caused some major problems when I got to the jungle. So all of our trip was based on being beside the road. There was no hotels that we went to or anything like that. A couple of hotels, I think one in each country we went to. But we would sleep in our rooftop tent at the side of the road, we'd do our cooking at the side of the road, and create a bit of a hospital first aid station at the side of the road. Everything was just at the side of the road. There was no luxuries, although compared to my last trip, this was a major luxury. Other dangers in Africa are creepy crawlies. So these are just a random selection of photos that I took throughout the trip of different creepy crawlies that I encountered. This one at the top here, top left, in the middle of the night one night, I was in the tent that you saw earlier attached to the vehicle, and I needed a pee in the night. You know, very normal, everyone needs to pee. I went out of the tent and I disturbed this guy pulling his prey into a hole. He had like this massive spider, bigger than the scorpion. He was pulling this spider into a hole, and as I stepped out of the tent, I disturbed him. The spider ran one way, and the scorpion just looked at me as if to say, I'm having you instead. And like chased me round while I was trying to have a pee. Robert, being African, he knows about these things. Robert stuck his head out and he was like, yeah, that one's going to kill you. I was like, great, okay. Just wanted to have a pee, not being chased around. So, you know, these are just like normal things. You just want to have a pee, but, you know, you've got to contend with things like this. This spider, I don't even know if it was actually a spider. It's something scary. We saw them everywhere. They're literally about the same size as my hand. I don't know, I could never figure out whether they were deadly or not, but you just take the precautions that you have to take when you see one. These pictures all in the middle row, they're all related to each other. So these little fly things, I don't know if anyone that's been to Africa has any experience of these. I'd never heard of them. They are a kind of a fly, but they make honey. And at a certain time of year, when there's no fruit on the trees that they would get juice from, they basically try and get juice from your body. So they go into your eyes, they go up your nose, they go in your ears, they go in your elbow crevice kind of thing. So this is, Robert's got some tissue in his ear. You can't really see it, but there's actually flies all around his head. And if you're running and you just want to stop and have a drink of water, it really has to be like well planned. So you're running along, you've got your water on your back, you're like trying to get everything ready so you can stop for like 30 seconds, drink water and then go, because they just cloud all over you. They're not dangerous, they don't bite you, but they're just really seriously irritating. So wanting to try and get a bit of rest in the middle of the day was just impossible because they all just get all over you. So I put up the mosquito net one day and thought, well, I'll have a bit of rest in the shade, they're not going to get me, this is going to be great. Turns out that they're exactly the same size as the holes in the mosquito net. So they all came in and there was no way they were going out. It's just like, yeah, for about a 2-week period in Mozambique there was no rest. I just couldn't stop still for a second. We'd sometimes get in the vehicle, switch on all the fans and just sit there, but yeah. It was a nightmare. They'd come through the air vents as well. So that was that. Okay, so my daily routine when I was running, it was pretty much the same every day. The only thing that changed was that the distance overall did increase. So every day I would be up and running before the sun came up. I would wake up half an hour before sunrise and eat a Cliff Bar while I'm laying in bed. I'm not very good at eating and running, but Cliff Bars seem to work really well, and they love sponsoring people, so they just gave me loads. It was brilliant. So I had loads of Cliff Bars. I'd lie in bed and I'd try and eat a Cliff Bar. Then I'd get up, and as the sun's coming up, I'd run 15 to 20 kilometres. As my fitness increased, then my distance would increase. Then I'd have breakfast, which was normally porridge, if we could get hold of porridge, which, because we had a vehicle, we had a little bit more access to other shops than we did with my brother. So I'd have porridge for breakfast, then take an hour to let it digest and have a bit of rest. Then another 15 to 20 kilometres run. Then I'd have lunch and a long rest, so 2 to 3 hours to try and get out of the heat. Another 15 to 20 kilometres, and then have my dinner and sleep. And this was the same day after day after day for 3 months. So obviously with all this running, it's really hard work and the heat and everything, you really need a purpose for doing this. And all of this time that was going by, the team that I was with, we'd all started to fall out. Like I said before, it was the first time we'd ever been together as a team. We didn't really know each other, and it turned out that some people were prepared to work harder than others. And obviously I was running all the time, so I was exhausted. There was massive tension within the team. And because my friend had asked me to do this run, I didn't really have my own purpose for it. My purpose was to make her happy, because that's how it come about. So I'd lost my purpose now, because we'd all fallen out and I wasn't enjoying the whole thing. I'd lost my purpose, didn't really want to carry on. This is about halfway through. And I think what I found is when you mentally lose your reason for doing it, when you lose your purpose, physically your body just says, I'm not doing it. So this is what I would be like every kilometre or so. I'd just be sat at the side of the road talking to Mike saying, I just can't do it. Like I really needed a reason myself to do it. So then again I had to change my mind frame. And I had to shift my focus from the original thing that was I was doing this because my friend had asked me. I then had to think about the charity, and I was just 100% thinking about the charity, and also selfishly thinking, I've got this far, I've got to finish this, because I'm quite a stubborn person, so I was like, I've got halfway, I'm going to finish it. And everything had to change, and a lot of this, I believe it's all down to your mind. So we're struggling with the team, and then we get to this section I showed you on the map where there was lions. So we had to change the tactics a little bit. Everyone in the team hates each other at this point, and there's an area that's lions, and normally I have Mike cycling next to me, but in the team we're all having these arguments about whether or not Mike should be cycling next to me, whether I should be by myself, all these things. So what we decided to do is Mike goes in the vehicle, and the door is literally next to me, running beside the vehicle, so if a lion is seen, I personally didn't believe that there was going to be any lions whatsoever, so this was more arguments. I didn't think there was lions, other people in the team did think there was lions. I would run next to the vehicle for 4 days, so I had a really loud vehicle running next to me, and the exhaust is about here, so it's hot. Obviously I'm hardly wearing anything because it's so hot, and I've also got exhaust like coming into my legs. It was boiling, and I've got pepper spray. Plan of action, lines. Just don't hear me.
They hate that.
Apparently there was wild dogs, so that's why I had the pepper spray. But the plan of action was that Aisha was sitting on the roof. I personally didn't think that was going to help. She had binoculars looking out for lions. I personally felt that if a lion was going to come and attack us, it would probably just take her off the roof. So I was like, this is stupid, but we've got to just kind of work together. So Aisha was on the roof with her binoculars, Wukash was driving, Mike was there. The plan was he was going to open the door and pull me in if a lion did come. I just think it's all nonsense. But anyway, this added more tension.
She's got the window open, so the lion would just get in through the window, wouldn't it?
The whole thing was just nonsense, and just
Did you
kind
not
of go
like,
with it.
did they not sell guns? Did you not like?
I would not
sell
let my
guns?
support team be in control of guns.
You laid on the roof with the gun.
Definitely would have trusted her with a gun. I should have shot a foot off. So yeah, anyway, tension in the team, big time. This is how we sit in silence, eating our food at the side of the road, looking miserable. So we realised we had to do something about this. It just wasn't pleasant for anyone. We had loads of meetings and arranged that we were going to kind of go back to the way that me and my brother had done the trip, which is obviously how I didn't want to do it because it puts more stress on the person cycling. But it was kind of the only answer. So we decided that the support team with the vehicle were going to go ahead to a city or a town and going to do some promotional work for the charities, while me and Mike did the running and the cycling. And then we'd meet up so they could replenish us with food and then carry on like this for the rest of the way. It was the only way we were going to get to the end because we all hated each other. So this is me and Mike now on our own, looking well happy. The only problem with this is that my original plan was to be on dirt tracks the whole way because I've got pretty dodgy knees and running on the road isn't very nice for your knees. But with Mike having heavier weight on the bike, we kind of needed to be on the road. So now we changed it that Mike would ride on this part of the road and then I would run in the dirt next to him. So kind of both won out of this, but it wasn't ideal. We had to change the route a little bit for that. So we got to Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, and I was quite fortunate to stay in a house with a local lady. She was really lovely, and she was like, this is so amazing that you're here on this particular day, because this flower in her garden only flowers one night of a year. It comes out as the sun goes down, the flowers come out, and in the morning the flowers are all gone, and it only comes out on one night. And this flower is actually called the Queen of the Night. And the lady was so lovely, and she was like, you're the Queen of the Road, it's the Queen of the Night. So I had this photo done, and she was well happy about that. So in Harare, we got the bike kitted out. Other kind strangers just helped us. They gave us these panniers and pannier racks so that Mike could carry everything. And this was kind of the kit that we were taking with us from there on. Loads of different things attached for water, and that's my tracker. It was amazing. All sorted. We're like, this is brilliant. We're going to carry on, and we're all going to be peaceful and happy. It's brilliant. Obviously not. So on our first night, on our own, off we went into Zimbabwe. And it just happened that we went to an area that there was no breaks in the villages, because normally I'm quite experienced at wild camping. I'll quite happily go and put my tent anywhere, but the idea is that people don't see you because then they're interested and they're not happy about you being there or whatever. So we couldn't find anywhere that there was no houses around. We eventually found a group of trees probably the same size as this room, and we were like, right, we're just going to have to sneak our tent into the middle of this little collection of trees. So we put the tent up, managed to cook dinner, and we were kind of like, that's fine, but we could see houses around us. And then, once we were relaxed, a group of people came over, and they were like, what are you doing here, basically? There was no actual English communication, but the idea was, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here, it's too dangerous, you need to go. I'm like, great, what are we going to do? But it turns out that if you're in an African village, you're supposed to approach the chief of the village and ask for permission to sleep there. And it was the chief that had come to speak to us, and he was like, you can't stay here, but come and stay in my house. So this was like the coolest thing ever. So obviously we're pretty grumpy. I was being really grumpy because I'm tired, I've been running all day. And this guy come and told us off and moved us along, and we've got to put the tent away. I was so grumpy, and then he took us to this hut, and I was like, this is so cool. Who gets the opportunity to stay in a proper African hut? So this is where we slept for the night, and it was so cool. We would have never had that experience if we were with the support team. So, you know, every cloud has a silver lining. So this is the morning, getting up at sunrise again, and there was a guy that I'd met in Harare that was a keen triathlete, and he was like, basically he didn't believe what I was doing. He was like, girls can't do that, you're not doing that. I was like, well, come and run with me for the day then, see how you feel, you know, you can go with it. So he turned up, and my day at this point, I was doing 60 kilometres a day, split into 320s. So this is the first, in the first 20 he ran with me, and he was planning on doing the whole day. He did the first 20, and then that finished for breakfast, and he was like, oh my god, I didn't think you would be going that quick. But he was like, it's fine, I'll carry on. So the second 20 came round, he did the first 10, and he was like, I just can't do anymore. He was exhausted. Thankfully his dad had come along and brought the bike with him. So he did the next 10 on the bike, and he was like, I'll do the last 20, I'm going to do at least 50. He did 10 more, and he was like, good effort, love, like, you're doing well. He couldn't do anymore. But the amazing thing was having someone else to talk to, because even though Mike on the bike is brilliant, he's a great friend of mine, he doesn't speak. So the whole way across Africa, I was just in silence or talking to myself. And then this chap, Mike Gray, he really enjoyed the day with me, and he was really impressed and whatever. And the best thing about it was that he gave us a beer at the end of the day. So, you know, when you're running across the continent, small things like that make you really happy.
People keep giving you alcohol.
I know! I don't know how I just like give out these vibes that like I need alcohol. I know! Just like, I've got a very good life for an alcoholic. People just give me alcohol. So now we're into Mozambique, and it's hot and humid. It's getting into a jungle now. And like I said earlier, I was being massaged with cooking oil. Not a great idea. This is I haven't put my hands in any water. There's like streaks down my leg. This is just sweat that's coming off of me all day, every day. And the major problem that happened that I would have never expected, I don't think anyone ever could expect this, is that my shorts were soaking up the oil from the bottom and then being drenched with sweat from above, and they were just burning my legs basically. The heat from the sun was getting so hot in the oil and the sweat that it was like, it can only be described as branding. Like I felt like a cow that was being branded. It was agony. And then I got this like rash. It's not really a great photo, but there was a rash all over me, and it was basically like burning on my legs. It was horrible. But you would never expect that. So that was a problem. At this point, I was just about to run through the hottest town in Mozambique at the hottest time of year. And another danger with the heat is that Mike got really ill. We thought that he had malaria, which is obviously a major problem, even though we were all taking anti-malarials, but if you get ill, then they're not necessarily going to work. So Mike got really, really ill. He ended up in hospital. We were very fortunate that this was another time when we met some locals that invited us into their house, and they arranged to go and see a doctor. He got put on a drip. He was pretty ill. I sat up all night with him thinking that he was going to die. I was watching him breathing. Thankfully he snores, so every time he fell asleep I could tell he was breathing. But then obviously he was my support beside me. The support team were going to go a different way, and I was just with Mike. So then everything, we had to kind of force ourselves back together, otherwise it just wasn't going to continue. So I needed someone on the bike next to me, and Mike stayed in hospital for a few days. So I had the next best person. This is Robert from the charity in Zimbabwe. Absolutely amazing guy. So he volunteered to go on the bike next to me, and first day he was cycling with me. He got on the bike. He was a little bit wobbly, but you know, he did it. He was brilliant. And also Robert is probably the same size as me or a little bit shorter, and Mike is like 6'4" or something ridiculous. He looked stupid on the bike anyway. He was riding next to me, and I was like, "You okay, Robert?" And he was like, yeah, this is great. So, "Oh, when was the last time you were on a bike?" I said, "Oh, I've never been on a bike before." Absolute legend. Like, I would not have expected him to ride next to me if I knew he'd never ridden a bike. So he rode next to me for the next few days, and it was great for me because I learnt about the country that he lives in, and I learnt a lot about him and what he'd been through. Like, he was one of those people that almost died as a child because they had no money for food, and incredible person, and what he's become now is just, it's such an inspiration. So the second day that he was with me on the bike is called Alfredo. He turned to me on the second day and he was like, "Emma, Alfredo's behaving differently today." I was like, "Oh, looks okay." I don't really know much about bikes, but yeah, it looks okay. So we carried on cycling, and then he was like, "It really feels harder today. I don't know what's going on." I was like, "Well, you've never ridden a bike before. You're probably tired from yesterday." And then we kept on going and going. We did 60 kilometres that day. Halfway through the day, he was like, "Is it hillier?" I was like, "I don't think there's any hills. It's pretty flat." But I was like, yeah, Robert, it's hillier. That's probably why you're struggling. At the end of the day, we went back to see Mike in hospital, and Mike came out and looked at the bike, and he was like, "Robert, you've had the brakes on all day." That's why. I felt really guilty because I was like, I should have known these things. But, so anyway, we're in Malawi now, Malawi or Mozambique. We're getting close to the end, and I'm desperate to finish. I've had enough. I've been running for almost 3 months now, and the team are back together, which is causing more tension again. I just want to get to the end. But just as I'm a few days from the end, I'm running along, and I literally can't keep anything in my stomach. I'm literally running into the bushes and crapping every 5 seconds. It was terrible. I didn't even feel ill. I don't know if other runners have experienced this if you've been ill. You don't feel ill, but you're just literally every 5 minutes going into the bush and having diarrhoea. Which is quite embarrassing when there's like African people walking to work. They've never seen a white person before, but they've definitely never seen a white person shitting in a bush. I thought, right, I'll cut it easy this day. I'll just do 40k, and then I'll go and get some rest and hopefully recover, and the next day I'll be back on it. So went and rested. Thankfully we'd found a church, so this was outside a church. Thought I'd get some rest, wake up the next day and be amazing. That didn't happen. This was the next morning. I woke up and I just couldn't move at all. I'd obviously, all the energy had gone out of my body completely. I'd been up all night, shitting still. So I spend the next day lying on this floor, falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep, just trying to get food in and water in. I had 213 kilometres left to do to get to the coast. I was just desperate to finish. And that's the end. Any questions? Anyone want to see the toes again?
How are your toes now?
Yeah. They had completely recovered, but then I did a massive walk in Australia and my big toenail looks exactly the same as that now. It must be just something I do.
What's next? Because you're going to have something next.
Yeah, there are plans. My next thing I'm doing, actually next week, I'm flying out to Africa to support a guy who's running the length of Malawi and I'm cycling beside him. So I'm going to do the support team thing. I'm going to do a mega job of it. I'm going to be like the best support team. I know how to be a bad support team now, so I'm going to be the best support team. But then I do have plans for something I'm going to do in a couple of years, but it's a secret at the moment.
How do you manage to fit it all in around work?
I basically have some really good friends that support me and let me stay in their house a lot of the time, so I don't pay rent or anything. What I do is I travel around the world and I'll go and work somewhere intensively. Like December and January I went to Australia and I was working in a bar pretty much 14 hours a day and staying in a hostel and cleaning the hostel, so I didn't have to pay for any accommodation there. And I'll just work intensively and then I don't really spend a lot of money. I spend like half my year in the tent wild camping and stuff, so I don't really spend any money. So I don't have a career anymore. Like I said, I used to be an RSPCA inspector. And I just decided that I didn't really want to have a career anymore. I wanted to kind of more travel around, work in one place, save up money as much as I could, and then just live a really cheap life. So when I come back to the UK, I don't pay rent. I've got friends that will let me stay in their house, or I'll go and stay with my parents, and then, yeah, just very, very cheap, basically. Cool. There we go.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to follow me on social media, please do.
Brilliant.
Just time to
Thank
speak
you.
to that.